Hey friends, end of September, and I feel like I'm finally in a place that we can do an update of our school year. And I say it that way because in 16 years of homeschooling, I've never been as unprepared as I was this year. Back in the spring, I shared our plans. I felt like we had a pretty good idea of what was going to happen at the start of the summer. And then some of the things that we had decided then we are doing. Some things changed, and even the things that I had already planned, I hadn't actually planned them as far as making sure everything was ordered and getting them onto the lesson planner, homeschool planners for the boys. It has been a mess of a year to begin with, or it started out, I should say. However, as much of a mess as I thought it was when we started, it's gone remarkably well. Maybe one of the best, smoothest starts, especially considering where we were on the day we started school. Now, before I go any further, I do just want to say, I assume you've probably followed the news, but if you haven't, or you've not paid close attention, Western North Carolina has been hit beyond comprehension from the hurricane. Every time I look at a photo or video, it feels more hopeless than the last time. We are actually fine. I'm more in the central part of the state, and we've really got barely anything. But that western part, my friends, it's beyond anything. It's horrible. This week, we are going to take some time off of school. I hadn't planned to, but there's a couple organizations that we can do some work with on this side so that supplies can go to that side of the state. So a reminder to me that, and hopefully to you, that some things are more important than your bookwork. Sometimes things can't be changed, and I know that. But when we can, don't forget to slow down and remind your kids about life as well, and how important it is that sometimes we put pause on the things that we think are important so that we can work on the things that really are important. Back to homeschool stuff. As I said, I really was unprepared for this year. I hadn't ordered many books, and I didn't have plans into the boys' planners. Matthew uses Google Sheets and Ben uses OneNote, both free and both are working well for them. One thing, though, that I realized I was going to desperately need to do this year was block off time and enforce it that I would take to plan and grade each week. Now, I initially thought I would do this on Fridays because that's what made sense. However, I gave it a little thought and realized that if I was doing it Friday afternoon, but we took off Friday afternoon, or we took off all of Friday, it would be out of my habit or out of my routine, and so it wouldn't get done. So I decided to move it to Thursdays instead, Thursday mornings, in fact, and so far it's been going really well. It does mean that I still have a little bit of stuff that I may have to wiggle around from school day Thursday and Friday, but mostly everything is done well enough that I don't, even if there's a little bit of jiggle around, it doesn't take me long to do. So blocking off time has been really, really good, but I had to be purposeful about not doing it Friday afternoons, which is what I wanted to do. Let's talk about history, because one of the things that I decided to do this year was start off our year with a history of the world through games mini unit. Last fall, we really missed doing work together. So in the spring, I was a little more intentional about that. And that was part of why I decided to start the year with a little fun history unit. The other part of that was because I wasn't prepared for history. However, with two in high school and different needs and different demands, finding time when we could all sit down together to do this has been a challenge. So instead, what I did was give them the same assignments. They did them on the same days, but then we could talk about it while we were in the car or cooking dinner or whatever. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds, that they can do it on their own times, but we're still getting that together stuff. So we will keep up with that this year. Not every day, not every week, but here and there. Back to the history of games unit though. I found a course from Crash Course all about games. So there were a few specific videos that I assigned. The other days they could choose whichever one they wanted. Each week we had a different documentary, and that's what actually spurred it, because I found a Monopoly show on PBS. So about the history of the game and how the time period it was how it reflected the time period, that sort of thing. We also had some different books on history of games and video games and such. It was so much fun. And if you want me to do a longer video about this, I would love to do it. Just let me know down in the comments. It was a really fun way to start the year, while also buying me a little bit of time to figure everything else out. So what else we decided to do with history? Matthew is doing the 20th century world history this year through the lens of wars and empires and tyranny and all of that. I found a course on OutSchool. It's a live class of 20th century history using films primarily. And so every week they watch a different movie outside of class. And then she assigns some big history, OER's big history, which I talked about in this video, and some crash course, different things like that. It has really been a great choice for him. I am so glad we stumbled upon it. He's also using OpenStack's high school history book, which I talked about in that same video. It has been a fantastic book. It is structured enough that something he's drawn to, but I'm also able to pull in these other resources, and he's been really pleased with the book. I've been pleased with it. I think the quality is really good. It's a great choice. If you are looking to switch textbooks this school year, definitely check out OpenStax. They have college books and some high school ones. So depending on your kiddo, check out both of those. Now for Ben's history, in the spring, I shared that we would continue with Susan Wise Bauer's high school / adult books. He was going to do history of the Renaissance world. And I say past tense because, and I shared this on one of my community posts, I discovered in May that he had read almost the entire book. I knew he had started it. He was supposed to. I didn't realize he had gotten to like the last 10 chapters of the book, which was supposed to last him this entire school year. So we've been struggling a bit to find something that's going to work for him. He loved those books, and I'm really sad that there's not a next one. I think it's coming out, but not in time. So we're playing around with things and watching some different documentaries, and one of the books, I actually forgot it downstairs, that I gave him is called Cod, and it's by an author named Mark Kurlansky. And I'm sharing about this specifically because if I told you that one of the books my kid is reading is about cod for history, you might think I'm Looney Tunes. But his books, and he's got several, mostly around food, is that he places it in the history of everything else. So it talks about things like wars to determine who owns what waters. It talks about the Spanish Armada. It talks about all of these things that relate to history and relate to the ocean and relate to wars. But the central topic is cod. And if you have a kiddo who loves quirky history or has trouble getting drawn into history, don't be afraid to search out these odd, quirky books. Because history is so much more than the dates and the facts that we read in our textbooks. And when we place real world things and understanding of like how fighting over the oceans around your perimeters, if you're a coastal country, what that does to your population and your things that you harvest and all of this stuff, it gives us a different perspective of history. So don't be afraid to search out these books that just feel off, maybe feel weird to us, if it's going to be something that's going to appeal to your kiddo and make them enjoy a subject. Math this year, we have a winner and maybe a loser. On the winner, Matthew is continuing using math. He's in geometry this year from Math Without Borders. If you don't know this company, there are videos where the instructor is teaching and then a textbook. Now, the textbook he's using for geometry is out of print. So you do have the PDF. I printed out, but you could also just put it onto like a tablet. Now, I don't know about you, but when I learned math in high school, it was all proofs and you had to know how to pull out like facts and all this stuff. And I absolutely hated geometry. I didn't understand how to know when to apply different things. And it all just felt like I was storing information up here to pull out without any understanding. This math is completely different. Rather than learning that these two angles will always be equal, or the fact that this type will always be corresponding or whatever, this program teaches you why. So yes, you're learning that this is true. These are going to be corresponding angles. But rather than just learning that, you're figuring out why. It is a discovery-based math approach, kind of similar to Beast Academy, which we loved. It has been a struggle to figure out a pacing for it and how to use it well and whatever, but Matthew is loving it. When we started chapter 1, I thought, oh, he will hate this, because it wasn't a clear, like, do these 5 problems today and do these 10 problems tomorrow. Instead, we just work for a certain amount of time. The videos don't line up as neatly as they did last year for algebra. And I really was prepared to hate it. Well, I thought I would like it. I was prepared for him to hate it. He has enjoyed it so much. So much. I will do a video, longer one, later in the year once I feel confident enough in how we're using it to show you how we're using it. And just a reminder that sometimes things are going to surprise us. Bits. Again, a surprise. He's a good math student. He enjoys it, or he is good at it. He doesn't enjoy it. So this year, I wanted to give him a little break because he finished Algebra 2 last year. He'll do statistics at the community college next year. And I wanted to give him just something a little easier. So we started the year with Mr. D's Financial Literacy. And I knew it was an older program. I didn't realize what that really meant as far as what they would be teaching, because this was written, I think, like in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, but either way, 20 plus years ago. And everything's different. I mean, not everything, but things like how you go about finding savings accounts, how you do car loans, writing checks. I told him, you are skipping that section. You're not doing it. And he's not really enjoying it. He's loved Mr. D's before, but so I don't know what we're going to switch to. If we're going to switch, I will stay tuned till the end of October with my next update. I'm disappointed. I knew it was older. I didn't know how much we were going to not enjoy it this year. Okay, last, let's talk about English. The only thing I knew that we were going to do for sure this year were a couple of fish tank units for Matthew because he's enjoyed them in the past. I've talked about them. And I knew that we were going to do British literature through literary adventures for kids for Ben. Beyond that, I didn't know. But this summer, I was at our used curriculum store over in Raleigh, and I came across Oak Meadows' Hero's Journey. Now, I had just read a lot of really good reviews about this, but I didn't want to spend the money on Oak Meadows. It's expensive, and I didn't know if we would enjoy it. But then I came across it for like $35, brand new. And so I thought, that I'll do. Matthew has enjoyed it far more than what I expected. He's about to finish the first book, which was The House of the Scorpion, which again, he started reading the book and didn't really enjoy it, but then he really got into it, and he's not enjoyed many books in the past few years, so I was glad of that. The program itself, we've had to definitely do some revising. It's a lot. It is a rigorous program. And he's not a slow reader, but he's not a quick reader. And he's not a slow writer, but he's not a quick writer either. So we've had to pick and choose, but it's been so good. I am so, so glad that I had just read some reviews about The Hero's Journey before I went to the store. I don't know that I would have chosen it otherwise. He has really enjoyed it, and I have enjoyed that we're doing something textbook-wise instead of on the computer. I don't mind using the computer, of course. You guys have seen us use it a ton, but there just needs to be a balance. And last year, he spent almost all day doing stuff on the computer, and I don't love that. So far, this has been really good. Now, one more thing I decided to do this year was to go back to basics and do some spelling work with my boys. I have definitely not done any for a few years, and they're hit or miss with spelling. And that is definitely something that I have struggled to do well after the early elementary years. Add in some language processing disorders and speech difficulties, and it just makes things more difficult with spelling. But again, when I was at the used bookstore, I found sequential spelling. Actually, I picked up two, sequential spelling, and I forget what the other one is. But I decided to go ahead and do some review work with them. Matthew has already made it through book 1. Ben, I started it later after Matthew, so I'm only doing one at a time. Look for more updates on this later, and if you want me to give you a deeper dive into the books, I'm happy to do that. So far, I'm enjoying it. I think was a really good review for Matthew. It will be a good review for Ben as well, I expect. So that's kind of our start of the year. I would love to know how your year is going. Please let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.